Hi, my name is Anise Barker, and thank you for joining me today to learn more about what comprehensive sexual education will mean for your school and for your child. In this presentation, we're going to cover the following questions. What type of content will my child be learning? What is social emotional learning? Does CSE work? Can I opt my child out? And what are my options? ESSB 5395 was designed at the request of the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, or OSPI. 5395 authorizes OSPI to set standards for comprehensive sexual health education, and all curricula adopted by school districts must conform to these standards. I will touch on the 3 R's curriculum here because it is the only curriculum currently approved by OSPI that has course material for all K through 12, and the only curriculum that has course material for K through 3. With the passing of 5395, OSPI has successfully mandated that CSE be taught in every school in Washington state. They requested the bill, they set the standards, and they approve curricula. What this means is that topics such as gender identity, sexual orientation, sexual consent, sexual healthcare services, and other highly controversial topics will be included in your child's sexual education beginning in kindergarten, thanks to OSPI and Senator Claire Wilson and other legislators. This is the only curricula topic that schools have to submit approval and report compliance on to OSPI. Not math, not history, not language arts, etc. Just sexuality education. It is also an unfunded mandate, meaning that school districts are compelled to comply and implement CSE without any state funding to cover materials, training, or support. Those costs will fall solely upon the school districts. The authors of the 3 R's curriculum, Advocates for Youth, has partnerships with many different organizations, including Planned Parenthood and SECUS. This is an OSPI approved curricula for K through 12. It meets all of OSPI standards for sexual health education. In the 3 R's curriculum, your child will receive 79 lessons on sexuality. I decided to break the lessons down by topic to give you a rough and dirty look at the content your child will be taught. Each one of these lessons is approximately 50 minutes of instruction with the intention to have co-ed instruction within your child's class. Your child will receive 4 safe touch lessons, 5 bullying and harassment lessons, 4 anatomy lessons, 2 reproduction lessons, 4 puberty lessons, 5 birth control lessons, 7 STD lessons, 4 relationships lessons, 2 texting lessons, 1 pornography lesson, 8 gender lessons. 5 of these are sexual orientation and gender identity lessons. The other 3 are about gender expectations. 5 LGBT lessons, 4 internet sex ed lessons, 12 communications lessons. In this, I have included lessons on communication, decision-making, and consent, since all of them are geared towards helping your child make decisions on how to consent to sexual activity. 3 rights of minors lessons, plus 9 other something to note are included. Through most of the curriculum, your child will be given role-play situations to read through, either alone or as a group. The curriculum notes to the teacher that names in these scenarios may be gender neutral, so that all situations can apply to same-sex couplings. The lessons point out that this gives the teacher opportunity to discuss gender identity and LGBT topics. So when you see 5 LGBT lessons listed, those refer to specific lessons regarding the LGBT community or advocacy for LGBT. But the framework for LGBT inclusion and normalcy are woven into most lessons, starting even in kindergarten, with the reading of The Family Book by Todd Parr, which introduces children to same-sex parents. Also, the STD lessons your child will receive are never about the STDs themselves. STD lessons are always about contraception, or how STDs are transmitted. Never once does a lesson in this curriculum talk about the actual disease. In the same vein, It discusses the signs and symptoms of pregnancy, but never does the curriculum discuss the development of a baby in the womb. So when OSPI says this is just business as usual, they are not being truthful. This is not normal sex ed, and this is not just about safe touch and sex abuse prevention. We already have Erin's Law being taught in every school in Washington state that mandates safe touch and sex abuse prevention lessons. So what else is your child getting with this curriculum? If you would like to see more information regarding lesson content, I fully encourage you to take the time to view my 3-part series on the 3 R's curriculum. There you will see a breakdown of lessons per grade, K through 12, examples of lesson content, and the graphics your child will be shown. Now you have seen the subject content from the 3 R's curriculum, a curriculum approved by OSPI. But should schools really be teaching these things to your kids? Should OSPI standards include topics such as gender and pleasure? I would like to introduce you to Lori Dill. She is the Program Supervisor of Sexual Health Education for OSPI. She is a former employee of Planned Parenthood, and she gave an interview at a Planned Parenthood event recently where she was asked if schools should be teaching pleasure. I'd like to play her answer for you.
Ideally, the focus is healthy relationships, healthy bodies, and pleasure. I think as a society, we have a hard time talking about pleasure, certainly in our public school system. I don't think it needs to be the focus, but I think it should not be ignored. I think it's part of a comprehensive approach, is just talking about all aspects of our sexuality. So, that's what I'd like to see.
That's what she would like to see. Are public schools teaching students how to give and receive pleasure as part of a normal sexual education? This is comprehensive sexuality education. This is not traditional sex ed, and the difference is stark. The bill states that kindergarten through 3rd grade will be based on social-emotional learning. Social-emotional learning is rooted in building the following competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. When social-emotional learning is paired with comprehensive sexuality education, these skills are appropriated for the purpose of instilling an ideology that teaches youth sexuality is, quote, normal and healthy, end quote. The authors of the 3 R's curriculum state that, quote, sexual development is a lifelong process. Infants, children, teens, and adults are sexual beings, end quote. They also write, quote, just as it is important to enhance a child's physical, emotional, and cognitive growth, so it is important to lay the foundations for a child's sexual growth. Adults have a responsibility to help young people understand and accept their evolving sexuality, end quote. Your child will be introduced from their very first lesson to the idea of same-sex parents as part of a normal family, that gender is fluid, and that they have sexual rights. The people behind comprehensive sex education are setting the stage for our children to consent to sexual activity at any age, because the belief behind this curriculum is that humans are sexual by birth. Those teachings, paired with lesson after lesson on bullying and harassment, start to bring the picture together. Your child is being pulled away from traditional family values and is being taught, for example, that fighting for LGBT issues is what makes you a good person. Bullying and harassment lessons are given to your child multiple times to break down barriers so that your child won't be able to distinguish between disagreement and bullying. For example, if a parent disagrees with their child's sexual choices, including the age at which they want to have sex, the type of sex they engage in, anal, oral, or vaginal, the gender of the person they choose to have sex with, or the types of birth control, including abortion, that they use, then they are bullying them. This is part of the social-emotional learning that your child is receiving. The 3 R's curriculum is from Advocates for Youth and was written by authors previously employed by Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood and its root system and branches of affiliated organizations stand to benefit from the consequences of teenage sexual activity. They profit off the writing and sale of their curriculum. They profit off the STD testing, and they profit off abortion services. They want your children to use their research resources and clinics. This is obvious by the numerous times your child is referred to Planned Parenthood's website and its affiliate organizations, like the Guttmacher Institute, for example. This is why your child will not receive any lessons regarding the negative consequences of sexual activity, including the physiological, psychological, and sociological impacts that sexual activity will have upon adolescent development. The sponsors of these curricula do not encourage your child to avoid sexual behavior, or even dangerous and deviant sexual behavior. This is not a risk avoidance program. This is a risk reduction program. The interesting thing is that schools don't teach a risk reduction curriculum for any other unhealthy behavior. Let's use drugs as an example. If a school used a risk reduction curriculum to teach about drugs, they would provide a class on how to shoot up heroin safely and properly dispose of used needles. No schools do that. That is ridiculous to think that this reductive approach would be used in this context, but it is exactly what OSPI's standards are enforcing for CSE curricula. Activists for comprehensive sexuality education claim that evidence proves CSE is the most beneficial and effective tool for reducing pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases in adolescents. But is this true? The Institute for Research and Evaluation, a private nonprofit research organization which has gained national recognition for its work evaluating sex education programs, compiled an evaluation on 60 different studies which looked at the effectiveness of CSE in the United States. Their findings do not support the claims made by the publishers and promoters of CSE curricula, and their findings are very insightful. In the category titled Dual Effect, meaning increased condom use during sexual activity and a decrease in teen pregnancy, the evidence demonstrated a 100% failure rate for a sustained period of more than 12 months after instruction, and a 92% failure rate in the first 6 months after instruction, meaning the curriculum had no success increasing condom use or decreasing teen pregnancy. It also showed teen abstinence at an 88% failure rate, teen condom use 76% failure rate, unprotected sex 94% failure rate, and preventing teen pregnancies and STDs had no success at all. So why is comprehensive sexuality education being taught in public schools? The data doesn't support the claims made by the organizations, lobbyists, and politicians that are fighting to push CSE through state legislation. Here is Lori Dills again at the same Planned Parenthood event talking about a topic that has been swirling around. Can I opt my child out of this curriculum? The bill gives a specific option to opt your child out of planned lessons. Let's hear what Lori Dills says about how she would like this comprehensive sexual education curriculum to work in Washington public schools.
So when thinking about the optimal future, what will sex ed look like in Washington?
Well, I think it would be comprehensive sex ed that starts in kindergarten, that's provided every year and not just once in a standalone class each year, as sometimes happens with HIV instruction. It's not enough to provide a video or an assembly talking about HIV or consent or any of these topics. It's intensive instruction that really engages youth over a matter of weeks, if not the full year, sort of weaving these conversations into all sorts of content areas. You think about the book Romeo and Juliet. Great opportunity to talk about consent. There are all sorts of pieces of literature that kids routinely read in school. We could be integrating messages that would dovetail nicely with the comprehensive sex ed curriculum. So lots of opportunities. I'd love to see it integrated throughout schools. I'd love to see more youth-directed sex ed where we really...
She would love to see it integrated through all school subjects. So can you opt out? What she is talking about is real. The proponents of this bill want this curriculum to be intensive instruction, even spanning the entire school year, running through all subjects. Remember, the bill has some very vague language regarding this intent. It reads on page 5, starting in line 17, quote, "Nothing in this section expresses legislative intent to require that comprehensive sexual health education or components of comprehensive sexual health education be integrated into curriculum, materials, or instruction in unrelated subject matters or courses." End quote. They added this section to the bill, giving the public a false sense of security. We heard from Lori Dill's own mouth what the intent is. There were amendments on the floor which were rejected that would prohibit CSC content being taught outside of planned health lessons. Another thing I would like to point out is that the language in the bill talking about opting out on page 4 starting in line 15 says, quote, "Any parent or legal guardian who wishes to have his or her child excused from any planned instruction in comprehensive sexual health education, ... end quote." Did you catch that? The term they use is planned instruction. So are they allowed to teach comprehensive sexual education content anytime they want? You can only opt out of planned instruction. Pair that with the vision of Planned Parenthood in Lori Dill's and the vague language in the bill which doesn't prohibit it, and I don't see how you can opt your child out of it. How can you opt your child out of a cultural and social change in the entire school? I would like to introduce you to two brave young women who attended the House Education Committee public hearing that I testified at. They both attend a middle school that teaches FLASH, a comprehensive sexual education curriculum. They were not called to testify before the committee, but they were given an opportunity to share their testimony at a press conference following the hearing. I would like to now share their testimonies with you.
At Curtis Junior High, thank you for hearing my concerns on this bill. In 6th grade, our school started the FLASH curriculum. I'll never forget the day our male teacher taught us what intercourse was. That was mortifying. We had to sit and hear very personal things with boys constantly joking about it. It made me feel violated, like I was just an object. Since the sex ed curriculum started, those kind of things go on all year long. Sexual comments are common. Boys will even grab girls inappropriately, and when addressed, they simply move on to someone else. I want it to stop, but if you say anything, you are made fun of, and no one takes you seriously. This is wrong, but everyone seems to just accept it, and girls suffer in silence. Sexual harassment is being tolerated and actually encouraged by the culture that is fueled by sex being an everyday at school. Girls already have a hard time being respected, and having sex discussed every day just makes it harder. I and many others want to have these sensitive discussions at home with those we trust, not in front of our peers and teachers. Schools should be teaching about safe boundaries, but instead they are crossing them every day. And by the way, opting out is not really an option. Anyone who does that gets teased and bullied even more. This really should be an elective class that you choose to take. Why can't it be that way? In my class, we are learning about our First Amendment rights. I am supposed to have the right to exercise my religious freedom, yet every day I am being forced to go against it in order to pass a class. I'm a pastor's daughter. Where are my rights? Where is my right to have safe boundaries? I don't want this mandated on me, and I certainly can't imagine making younger kids go through this. Today I ask you to guarantee that all kids' voices are heard. Please vote no and give us a real choice to keep our honor.
At Curtis Junior High. I'd like to tell you what the sex education curriculum has done to our school in the past couple of years. Feeling violated is the new norm. Sexual harassment is the new norm. Lack of respect is the new norm. Graphic details and pornographic images and inappropriate assignments have been a part of everyday life. Sex has now become the main topic of every conversation from the start of school to the end. Boys make lewd and demeaning comments and treated like no big deal. After all, it's just homework, right? This is very confusing, and the whole culture of our school has turned toxic, especially to girls. Imagine if your classroom activity was to play bingo with inappropriate words, and to look up those such inappropriate words on the internet. This is some curriculum there are. It's disturbing and inappropriate, but I don't get to say no. I don't get to have boundaries. The lines between sexual harassment and sex ed class are very blurry. Think about this. It's now okay for male teachers to talk to us about sex and every aspect of it, when a few years ago that would have gotten them fired. And if a boy tells us to look up page 34, is that harassment or discussion of homework? Where is the line? We have lost our ability to advocate for ourselves and demand better. Sex is very private and should be handled with respect, but that is not happening in our schools. We deserve safe boundaries We deserve safe boundaries, and we need you to provide them after all. We have to live with the laws you pass. Please vote no and protect our dignity.
That is moving testimony of what these girls are experiencing in their own middle school that teaches a comprehensive sexual education curriculum. Have they been able to opt out? So what can we do from here? There are several things that can be done. A lot of our state has been making their opposition known to their elected representatives in the House and the Senate by phone calls and email. The House heard debate and presented amendments on this bill on March 5th. Even as the debate was going on, representatives stated over and over again that they were receiving thousands of emails and calls opposing this bill even as they sat there. At midnight, there were still over 25,000 people tuned in to TVW watching the House floor debate about 5395. That is incredible. Nobody watches this stuff, but we were watching with bated breath that night. The House passed the bill at 2:06 a.m. on March 6th, with 56 yeas and 40 nays. Since that time, Washingtonians have been making their voices heard to the governor by phone and email. Another way we have made our voices heard is by protest. On March 11th, I was able to join thousands of others to protest on the steps of the Capitol building in Olympia. What an amazing experience to stand side by side with others to say no to the sexualization of our children. At the same time, we held a sex ed sit-out where hundreds of parents kept their kids home from school. That same day, there was also a protest held in downtown Spokane where hundreds of parents and children gathered to oppose 5395. We also have elections coming up this November. We can make our voices heard by voting out bad legislators like Claire Wilson, the sponsor of 5395, and Representative Lillian Ortiz Self, and Rep. Monica Stonier, and Sharon Tomiko Santos, and leaders, including Governor Inslee and the head of OSPI, Chris Reichdahl. If we want better legislation to happen in our state, we need to vote out those that would push these kinds of bills. You can make your opposition known to OSPI. Become familiar with the state standards for sexual education. Make sure you understand exactly what criteria they are requiring curriculum to meet. We really need to make our voices heard and demand OSPI update to a less sexuality and gender theory-driven standard. 5395 gives OSPI power to set the standards for health education in the state. We should demand that they listen to the public when setting standards. We should demand that there be more transparency in the process they follow. We need to challenge them, demand better, and flood OSPI with massive opposition. You can make your opposition known to your local school districts. Surprisingly, school districts didn't even know this was happening. Teachers didn't even know this was happening. When I talked with a kindergarten teacher to hear her point of view on the bill, I was caught off guard by the surprised look on her face. She had never heard of the bill and was completely unaware of how this would change her classroom. This is unacceptable. School districts and teachers should be made aware of education legislation by OSPI, especially when OSPI is the one that requested the bill. Another bad thing about this bill, besides the standards and approved curricula, is that this bill is an unfunded mandate. School districts will receive no monetary help to create or implement this curriculum into their schools. It is estimated that this could cost a district upwards of $250,000. Schools across the state have been forced to cut their budgets, and now they are going to have to add in curriculum with no funding. I was talking to one school board president recently, and she stated that they cut over $10 million out of their budget last year, and some of that came with a loss of curriculum, including science curriculum. They would like to get back actual science before teaching comprehensive sexual education. So make yourself familiar with the sexual education curriculum that your school teaches and review the curriculum they adopt in compliance with this mandate. If you are unhappy with the chosen curriculum, then challenge it within your district. Collaborate with other parents and community members and work with your districts to construct a curriculum if possible. Provide input and be resolute. Don't give up. Within your districts, make your voice heard to your school, to your superintendent, the school board members, the principal, and the teachers. Make sure you opt your child out of comprehensive sexual education lessons. You will have to do this in writing. What if your entire community opted out? That would be very interesting. So opt out. Standing together, we can make a difference. Organize your own community opposition to help those already fighting. Join the Facebook group Against 5395, a group run by A Voice for Washington Children Coalition. We are working with others across the state to help inform Washington voters. Share this presentation. Send it out on Facebook, in emails, in person. Spread the word on social media and in your community about the dangers of CSE. You would be surprised. Most people still don't know this legislation passed. So share, share, share. And if you can, let your local news networks know. Ask them to cover this. Do anything you can to get the word out. And if all else fails, you may have to draw the line in the sand. But before that, be aware that there are some other actions being taken to set this legislation back. A referendum has been filed with the state. This starts the process of signature collection on petitions to have the measure put on the ballot for November elections. This gives the power back to the people. If we can gather over 130,000 signatures before June 10th, then 5395 goes on the ballot under the title Referendum 90. This is going to take some communal effort to get this done, but it can be done. And the more people are made aware before the petitions are ready, the easier the process will be. I haven't met anyone yet that has viewed the standards and curriculum and been fine with this being taught in public schools. Becoming educated about what comprehensive sexuality education really means is key. But at the end of the day, you do have some other options. Homeschooling, private schooling, online schooling, co-op schooling, and even leaving the state are all possibilities. Unfortunately, charter schools will not be a safe haven from this mandate. Members of the House argued for an amendment to exempt charter schools from this mandate, but that amendment was voted down. Charter schools receive state funding, so they must comply with the mandate. So even if this mandate remains law, you will be aware of what is happening and will be able to make the right choice for your children and your family. Isn't that what this is really about? The state is trying to take your rights as a parent away regarding teaching about sex education, anatomy, and relationships. But you are the parent. Don't let the state take your freedoms away from you. Don't feel defeated. Applied knowledge is power, and now you know. You have the responsibility for your children's well-being. Do not let the state take your power away. Don't give up. Don't accept defeat. Protect your children. For more information and more videos on content from the 3 R's curriculum, you can view our YouTube channel at A Voice for Washington Children. Also, you can visit our website, the number 4wachildren.org. You can also join the Facebook group Against 5395 to help fight against comprehensive sexuality education in our public schools. Thank you for joining me today.